let me know when we're live so we can get started.
We're good to go.
All right. Well, good morning, all. Let's call this meeting to order. The Augusta Richmond County Board of Elections for January 11th, 2020 for the consideration of provisional and/or challenge ballots cast during the January 5th, 2021 general special election runoff. Lynn?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. So as you stated, the purpose of today's meeting is to consider the provisional ballots that were cast, whether we are now able to count them or not, and then to also discuss briefly the number of outstanding absentee ballots that we have on hand at this point to be added in this afternoon. And so with that, Mr. Chair, I would like to turn it over to Travis Doss, the Assistant Director, for a report on the various conditions and categories of provisional ballots.
Sounds good. Morning, Travis.
Good morning. I emailed this morning, probably about an hour ago, a copy of the report. So I will put that up on the screen so y'all can see. And this is a copy of our standard provisional ballot report with the investigations and whatnot. So if you would like, I would just begin with Group A as normal.
Please do.
All right. So we have Group A, which we had 68 voters who voted out of precinct, meaning they were either did not know the correct polling place or they did not have enough time to get to their correct polling place. And so we did look into that, and all 68 of those are current and registered voters for Richmond County. So the recommendation would be to count those 68 ballots. We have to duplicate those, even though everyone's ballot was the same countywide. For record keeping, statistical, and whatnot, we still have to duplicate their ballots onto the actual ballot that if they had voted in their own precinct, how it would have counted. So even though it's all the same countywide, we still have to put it on the correct precinct for record keeping purposes.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we count those 68 ballots cast in category A.
Second it.
It's been properly moved and seconded that we count the out of precinct ballots in Group A. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Group B.
All right, Group B, there were 6 voters that basically were in an other category. We still seem to have a few issues with voters poll workers finding voters on the poll pad. So it was either that they could not locate them on the poll pad, or for some unknown other reason, they had the person vote a provisional ballot. But we were able to determine that out of those 6 voters, that although they did vote a provisional paper ballot, they are registered voters. They were in the correct polling place at the correct location. So the recommendation is to count those 6 provisional ballots.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we count those 6 ballots.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded that we count the 6 voters that were not able to be located on the poll pad in Group B. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Group C.
Group C, there were 2 voters that voted during the advanced voting period. And as you know, that we start advanced voting a week after the voter registration deadline, but we can get applications up until the day before, just depending on whether it's through the mail, through the Secretary of State's office, and whatnot. So there were 2 voters that voted provisional ballot because their application could not be found at the time that they voted. However, by election day, we had entered those registrations. So they are registered to vote. They did register before the December 7th deadline. So the recommendation would be to count those two voters' provisional ballot.
Mr. Chair, I so move that we do count these two voter registration ballots.
Second.
Been properly moved and seconded that we count the voters designated in Group C. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Group D.
Group D, there was one voter that was marked as having voted in advance. And so we were not able to determine at the time that they were at the polling place whether or not it was them or not. And so we had them vote a provisional ballot. But upon further investigation, when we went back through our advanced voting audit, we saw that the person's name was on the audit, but there was no application to reflect that they had voted advance. And that's usually the standard practice that that's why we do those audits, because sometimes people get keyed in incorrectly or marked incorrectly. And in this particular case, this voter had not voted in advance. And so therefore the recommendation is to count their provisional ballot.
Mr. Chairman, I move we accept and count said ballot.
Second.
Been properly moved and seconded that we count the voter designated in Group D. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Group E.
Group E, this is one we haven't had in a while due to the opt-out process with DDS. But this person went to the Department of Driver Services back in 2018, and according to the DDS records, it showed that they did wish to vote. For whatever reason, it was not forwarded to us at that time. They did not show that they checked the box to opt out as far as registering to vote. So therefore, since they did not opt out, they should have automatically have been registered when they went to DDS. So the recommendation would be to count their provisional ballot.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we count those, the one voter in Group B, E.
Second.
Been
Second
properly moved and
that.
seconded. I believe that's a second by Terrence.
Terrence,
did you
yes,
say-
sir.
Okay, it's been properly moved and seconded that we count the voter designated in Group E. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Group F.
Group F, there were 3 voters that were marked on the poll pad as to having been issued an absentee ballot. The standard procedure for that would be for the poll worker to call our call center to verify that we had not received that ballot back. And if we had not, and the voter did not actually have their ballot, then they would have signed an affidavit. In the instance of these 3 voters, not quite sure what may or may not have happened, but we did show that no ballot had been received by these voters. And although they did not sign an affidavit, we were able to determine that no other ballot had been received. So the recommendation would be to count their provisional ballot.
So moved.
Second.
Been properly moved and seconded that we count the ballots designated in Group F. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Group G.
In Group G, this is also one that we haven't had in a while. There was one voter that was at the polling place who did not have one of the 6 forms of ID at the time that they voted. They were given the form explaining to them how they could have their ballot counted, explains to them that they either present ID to our office before the 5 o'clock deadline on Friday, or they can come to our office and get a voter ID. I actually called the voter on Thursday, did not reach her personally, but did leave a message on her voicemail explaining the procedures as far as providing the ID or getting the free ID. And unfortunately, by 5 o'clock on Friday, no ID had been provided. So the recommendation would be to reject their ballot.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we reject the one ballot in category G.
Second.
Been properly moved and seconded that we reject the ballot designated in Group G. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Group H.
And then Group H, there were 2 voters who records indicated that they had already voted and returned their absentee ballot. However, as we know, due to the long absentee ballot period, sometimes voters forget that they had already voted. But our records indicated that they had already voted, that their ballot had already been counted during the early processing. And so the recommendation would be to reject their provisional ballot.
Mr. Chair, I move that we reject these 2 ballots in Group H.
Second.
Been properly moved and seconded that we reject the ballots designated in Group H. That's Group H. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Next group, Travis, I.
Group I are PR voters. There were 10, I said voters, I guess technically they are people who showed up at the polls that thought that they had registered in a timely manner. However, on further investigation, we could not find any registrations for them, or they had registered after the deadline. There were a couple of people that did note on the provisional voter certificate that they had registered online, and we were able to determine that yes, they did indeed registered online, but unfortunately it was after the December 7th deadline. So out of these 10, we could not find that they were registered in a timely manner, and so therefore the recommendation would be to reject their ballot.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we reject these 10 ballots.
Second.
Been properly moved and seconded that we reject the ballots designated in Group I. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Travis, in Group I, when someone appears to vote and they have not registered, are they given the opportunity to register to vote there, or do we send them to the website, or what do we do in that circumstance?
When there is a person that in most cases, all provisional voters, if they do not appear to be registered, or if they're unable to find them, they are given a voter registration application at the time that they cast their provisional ballot. And so therefore, whether they are currently registered, whether they're either out of precinct, or for whatever reason, they are still given a voter registration application to either get registered to vote if they are not currently registered to vote, or given an opportunity to make changes to their address, which is the case a lot of times with the people who are voting out of precinct. But yes, they are given a voter registration application. If we find that for whatever reason they were not given one at the time they voted the provisional ballot, when we send them the letter letting them know the disposition of their provisional ballot, we also send them a voter registration application, and the letter also gives them the website as well, so they can either fill out the paper voter registration application that we mail to them, or they can go to the website to get registered to vote as well.
Thanks. I wanted just to kind of go over that so that those who would be listening in the audience or viewing online would be able to hear what the process is for that. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Let me see. There we go. Oh, that was easy. I was trying. I wasn't sure if I could get the next page to come up or not, but there we go.
Fantastic. Let's move on to Group J, please.
All right, so Group J, there were 26. As we know that with any election, we always have voters that happen to be here on election day. And so therefore they show up at the polls wishing to vote, even though they are currently registered to vote in other counties. Because this was a countywide election, because it was the same ballot across the state, I'm sure many people felt that as they could vote in any county or wherever the county they were located. Unfortunately, Georgia law does not allow that. You're only allowed to vote in the county on election day in which you are registered. And so for these 26, some of them have moved here, and therefore they filled out a voter registration application to get their registration changed to Richmond County. But there were many of them that put their Auna County address on the voter certificate and on the voter registration application. We had people from Chatham and Fulton and DeKalb all over the state. So because that is the way the law was written, for those 26 voters, even though it's the same ballot, we're not able to count their ballot unless they are registered in Richmond County. And for these 26, they are still current and active in their home counties. So the recommendation would be to reject their ballots.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we reject the 26 ballots in Group J.
Second.
Been properly moved and seconded that we reject the ballots in Group J. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Group K.
For Group K, there was one voter that was still in a cancellation status for being removed for no act in two general ballots. They were removed back in 2019. We could not find where they had re-registered to vote. We didn't have any applications for them. The last contact we had from them was when the rejection was done in 2019. So of course they were given an opportunity to get re-registered, and we can do that at this time. But unfortunately at the time of the election, they were not registered. So the recommendation will be to reject their ballot.
Mr. Chair, I move that we reject this one voter in Group K.
Second.
Been properly moved and seconded that we reject the voter's ballot in Group K. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Group L.
Group L, these were absentee provisional voters. I've got the wrong report up there. I apologize. This should say 23 voters. I emailed you the more recent version of this one. This one were people what's listed as in a cure status. There were 23 voters that we had sent letters stating that their signature, it was a signature mismatch, that their signature did not match what we had on file. Those signatures are reviewed by 3 people, 3 registrars before we put them in a provisional status. And then at that time, they are sent a letter, an email, and a phone call, depending on what type of contact information we have for them. And in the case of these 23, they ended up curing their absentee ballot before the deadline, which was Friday at 5 o'clock, but after 7 p.m. on election day. If they had done it prior to 7 p.m. on election day, their ballots would have counted just like every other absentee voter on election night. But in the case of these 23, they had not done it by 7 p.m. And so therefore they switch over to the provisional cure, and they become part of the provisional record. So for these 23, they did send in the affidavit. They did send in a copy of their ID. And so therefore the recommendation would be to count their ballots.
Mr. Chair, I'm a
Mr.
little.
Chairman, I move to accept. I'll
Yes.
second.
Mr. Chairman, I'm a little confused. I have on L, I have 0 in group L. I have 0 voters.
That is
And
correct. Yes,
in
ma'am. That is an
I have 23 voters. So is there no action on L and we're moving directly to M?
May I address
Sherry.
that, sir?
That-
Let me.
Sherry,
that
that's
was
a,
Travis, would you address the question, please?
Yes, sir. I'm sorry. I thought I addressed that when I started. The report that you have there is an incorrect report. There was a typo on that when I sent it out to you. Obviously, I've uploaded the wrong file here. Give me 2 seconds. I can put the correct one up. Also, I sent a corrected copy to your second email, but let me pull up the right report.
So it's just fair to say there's nothing in group L and therefore we're moving to M, or did you change the M to L?
No, ma'am. It's L should be 23.
Okay.
And then
Yeah.
when we move to M is actually 1.
All right. Okay. That's what I needed to know.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, for the record, I am looking at the updated, the corrected copy that that Mr. Doss sent out. Okay.
Yeah, I've got it printed out on my desk as well here.
Yeah, and I voted, and that's how, and that was the basis of my asking that it be moved, Mr. Chairman, that we move to accept.
I second that.
Been properly moved and seconded that we count the provisional ballots in group L. All in
That would
favor?
be 23 in group L.
Mhm.
Yes.
All in favor?
I,
Let's clarify. Let me clarify, make sure that I've got I believe that we had a motion from Terrence and a second from, where was the second?
Marsha Brown.
Marsha.
Okay, all right. I just wanted to make sure that we had that for the record. My audio was a little off there. Okay, fantastic. So it's been properly moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, group M. Group
All right,
M.
so group M, I apologize again, should only say 1. So it's 1 voter who voted absentee and had registered for the first time by mail. And so therefore they needed to show proper ID before the deadline. So the recommendation would be to count that 1 voter.
So move, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded that we count the ballot indicated in group M. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Group N.
Group N, there was 1 voter who was in a challenge status, stating that we had received information from the state that they had a felony conviction. The state has allowed for those voters to sign an affidavit at the polling place stating that they are no longer serving a felony sentence. Unfortunately, in this instance, they were not offered that affidavit, so they voted a provisional ballot. However, we were able to determine in our office by checking with the Department of Corrections that this person had already completed their sentence, and so therefore should not have been in a challenge status. And so the recommendation will be to count their ballot.
So move, Mr. Chairman.
Second that.
It's been properly moved and seconded that we count the ballot indicated in Group N. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And last but not least, Group O.
Group O, there were two other voters who were in a challenge status due to a felony conviction. Those two voters did not sign the affidavit stating that they had completed their sentence. And so therefore we looked into those for further investigation. And in the case of those two voters, it did appear that they are still currently serving their sentence. Unfortunately, in one instance, the person, one of the voters, I believe, his sentence ended on Friday, but because he was still actively serving a sentence on election day and has not re-registered to vote, we are not able to count his ballot. And in the case of the other voter, his sentence goes on through 2024.
Wow. Mr. Chairman, I move that we reject both those ballots in Group O.
Second.
Been properly moved and seconded that we reject the ballots indicated in Group O. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
by my count, I show 106 ballots then that the board has determined can be counted, and 42 that the board's determined must be rejected. And that is a total of 148 ballots, which is what was presented for the consideration of the board today. In addition to those 106 ballots that's been approved today, we also have 15 additional absentee ballots that are either military or overseas voters or other ballots that were not validated in time for us to upload on election night. So that's 15 additional ballots that will need to go in. And finally, there's an additional 19 ballots that are ballots that were cast electronically by members of the military. Their printed and marked ballots have now been received. And so everything's been validated on those. So those can now go into the mix as well. So that's an additional 34. And so by my count here, we should be this afternoon at 2 o'clock when we add the rest of these ballots in, be adding 140 votes in total to the unofficial results that we've released.
And that's going to be at 2 o'clock today, Lynn?
Yes, sir. 2 o'clock today.
Okay.
Oh, thank you, Travis, for putting that up. Thank you. And then from there, the plan is that we'll get those added into the mix tomorrow at noon. The Board of Elections will meet in the Lee Beer Commission chambers to certify its election results, at which time the board will examine the unofficial results compared with the official results that we'll obtain after adding in the balance of these votes and other election-related information for their consideration.
Very good.
All right. Well, it would appear that we are at the end of what we needed to gather for today. Is there anything else for the good of the board that we need to discuss?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman. This is a question for the director. I'm not able to make it tomorrow to the commission chambers. Is there a way I can participate via Zoom? Or is it just not necessary?
Travis, what do you think? Can we set that up?
I believe we can probably set up a laptop in the commission chambers, and also if we want to live stream that meeting as well, I can probably get in touch with the IT department to get us a link. Therefore, even though we are live meeting, we could probably attempt to live stream it as well.
That sounds great. Let's do both of those things.
Okay.
Thank you.
And if we have technical difficulties with that, then I'll be more than happy to monitor the laptop at my station and allow for Bob to communicate to the board from my station.
Very good.
Okay.
Great, thank you. Just send me the link.
Yes, sir.
Is there anything else for the good of the board today?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we adjourn.
Second.
Been properly moved and seconded that we adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. See you tomorrow.
Thanks, everybody. Y'all take care.